Coming up in tonight's show, we have a look at two of the best 7.5 tonners, Eve does a spot of DIY, and Brian has his used van top tip.
The life of a truck isn't easy. You've got those endless motorway journeys, bad weather, and of course the Great British Road Network, or should I say car park. Now as you sit there in your car watching time go by, have you ever wondered where all the aggregate comes from to build our roads?
Dovedale Quarry in the Peak District is one of the largest limestone open quarries in the UK, covering nearly 400 acres.
Throughout the year, the quarry produces some 3 million tonnes. Well, the quarry's been operating for 90 years, with an expectancy of another 220 million tonnes to extract.
Surprise, surprise, this is the first part of the process, blasting the limestone rock.
The quarry has various machinery, including 10 dumpers, 6 shovels and over 30 tippers. These are high levels of capital investment, as the shovels and dumpers cost between £200,000 and £250,000 each.
After the limestone has been blasted, these Caterpillar Quarry Trucks, which are 725 horsepower and have a gross vehicle weight of over 100 tonnes, they take them up to the primary crusher.
We produce limestone, but we also coat the limestone with bitumen to make a macadam for motorways and A roads, etc.
Caterpillar Quarry Truck got an engine of 3412 diesel, a power of 725 brake horsepower and a maximum gross weight of 100 tonnes. The tipper size is 42 cubic metres with a payload of 63 tonnes and the gearbox is a 7-speed power shift.
Behind me is the primary crusher. This is the first of 3 stages, primary, secondary and tertiary, that take the rock from this size to this.
The limestone crusher is one of a kind in the UK. It operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week and chomps through tens of thousands of tonnes every day.
So we've managed to get the rock from Mother Nature. But unless your best friends are Fred Flintstone and the dinosaurs, it's not much good to you. Join us later in the show and we'll be showing you how they get the rock from here to out on the road.
Now, who said trucks are boring? Well, certainly not me. On this series alone, we've seen some of the most exciting vans and trucks in the market. Over the last 25 years, the Iveco Ford Cargo has remained supreme, but things are changing now. We've got stiffer challenges from Europe and from Asia. With its box-shaped cab and flat traditional design, the Cargo looks just like any other truck on the market. From the outside, it's functional, does the job and gets you home, but never leaves you thinking, wow, what a great job. Now, one of the stiffest challenges is from Renault's new Midlam, which is increasing sales year on year. Visually, the Midlam isn't as distinctive as, say, the new Traffic or Kangoo vans, but it has the air of a modern cab and reflects the trend towards clean lines, although the separated light clusters don't make it as clean or sharp as it could be. But as we know in the truck industry, looks aren't everything, and perhaps it's more important is how it actually handles. So let's go and see it out on the road. So here we are inside the Midlam cab. First thing you notice from a driver's point of view, nice air suspended seat, fully adjustable, and it shouldn't have any problem getting the right position for yourself. And then next thing you notice, it's quite bright, quite cheerful. Don't forget this is one of the latest designs, so therefore it should be that way. And certainly I would say just a slightly brighter in terms of visibility than the Cargo itself. The vehicle we've got today is 180 horsepower. It's matched with a 5-speed gearbox, so it's got reasonable performance for a 7.5 tonner. The gearbox itself, I don't mind it, it's not too bad. It is a bit notchy though, I must admit. And certainly setting gear, whether it's just because of this vehicle or what, but certainly setting gear is a bit steep and also is more difficult to get into. But third, fourth and fifth isn't a problem whatsoever. Renault have made a good job of this cab. Don't forget this cab is also shared with DAF, and everybody at the moment in the industry is saying which is a better cab. Renault had it originally, and I must admit they did a damn good job of it.
The Midlam is available with two engines, a 4-litre 4-cylinder 12-valve unit and a 6.2 6-cylinder. Power ranges from 152 brake horsepower to 270, while the maximum torque is between 550 and 900 Newton meters.
Now when we talk about generic terms in the truck industry, they don't get more generic than the Ford Cargo. But nowadays the Ford Cargo has got as much to do with Ford as I have with women's ice skating. This is Iveco, it's Italian through and through. But as soon as you get inside Cargo, you realise that it hasn't changed much over the last 10 years. Having said that, Iveco would argue, well, you don't change a winner. They have upgraded it with some new seats, and you can tell it makes it a little bit better. But certainly when you get inside, it is a lot quieter than the Midlam. And from a driver's point of view, and certainly from a passenger's point of view, you realise that it's not got this semi-wrap round dashboard. So certainly if you've got a couple of passengers, it's much the better cab for that sort of operation. Visibility wise, it's just as good. There's not much in either of the vehicles really. Although I did notice that the Midlam does come with some extra curb mirrors. So again, could help you on the safety side. As far as noise is concerned in cab, I think the Iveco is slightly quieter. And I think that's because of the Tector engine that they've got, which is the latest generation engine. And certainly you can tell that it does rev. And in fact, it's a 4-cylinder engine, pulling out 170 horsepower basically, and not long ago we were talking about 6-cylinder engines. This vehicle, certainly you can tell the engine is very, very quiet, and everything that Iveco tells us about it. The other thing you notice with this engine is the fact that it appears, and I think it appears, the more revs you put on, the quieter it gets. This is a typical example of this new generation of engines where people are saying don't drive off the noise, and I can agree with them. This thing gets quieter as you put the revs on. It's unbelievable.
The Iveco Ford Cargo 75E15 has a 3.9 litre 4-cylinder F4 Tector engine with a power rating of 170 brake horsepower at 2700 RPM and a torque of 560 Newton meters at between 1200 and 2100 RPM.
So in the end, who's the winner? Well, it's a bit of a 50-50 to be honest. I do like the cab on the Midlam. It can tell it's latest generation. You can tell they spent a lot of time and effort on it, and it's a credit to them. When we look at the Cargo, I love the driveline. Cargo in the end is a 10-year-old cab with a 10-month-old driveline. So the winner ultimately for me would be the Renault cab with the Iveco driveline.
Hiya Evie, well I'm at a former colliery yard in Yorkshire and I'm here to meet Danny. Now he's going to tell us how these trucks help them with their job here in Yorkshire.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm alright. Now this is a dumpster truck, is that right?
Dump truck. This is yeah, it's a Cat D400E Series 2, the latest of the Cat series.
Right. What engine size is this?
It's a 6-cylinder engine rated at 427 horsepower.
Right.
So it's pretty large. But there again, the dump truck itself weighs 32 tonne, empty.
Empty.
Loaded, you're talking in excess 67 tonne.
that we've got other vehicles here as well. So what does that vehicle do to help this vehicle, to help this vehicle?
Well, that's a 345 with a rock breaker on. You can't really see rock breaker, it's under the machine. But
Right.
basically we've got a lot of big heavy concrete structures on site here.
Right.
So is there to,
That's to smash the concrete.
Yeah, I've got to watch my French here, but is there to demolish concrete.
Demolish is the good word.
To demolish
so that
the concrete.
demolishes the concrete. Then what happens then?
You can't see, I mean distance we've got a 365 excavator.
You've got one of them, haven't you?
Yeah, well he's
That's a big scooper.
Yeah, well he's rated at about 50 tonne.
Right.
The one doing the excavating is rated at 72 tonne he weighs. He'll load one of these in 3-4 passes.
So that's what that does. The scooper then loads this.
He breaks it.
He breaks it.
He loads it.
He scoops it.
Yeah.
Puts it in here.
And this fella next to her he levels it.
Levels it off. So what we're going to do now is see these trucks in action, I think. And I wouldn't mind if it would be possible at some point during the day to pull the lever on the dump truck. Can I do that?
While it's loaded?
Yeah.
I can't see there being a problem there.
Yes! Well, I'm ready to pull the lever now. It's a big responsibility. Here you go. There we go. T-brake now. Well, I've had an exciting day. Thanks to Danny, I've managed to dump my load and I feel so much better. But it's home time now, and has anyone seen the crew? I think they've left me, they've dumped me here, haha. I'll have to ask one of these lot for a lift. Excuse me, can I have a lift?
Coming up after the break, we found out how limestone gets out on our roads. See you then. Earlier in the show you saw us go head to head with the rock. Now it's time to see how all this aggregate gets out on the road. After crushing, the aggregate is transported by conveyor belt to storage tanks, where it waits for a tipper to be loaded.
Depending on the type of material we're carrying, if it's dry stone, the dry stone aggregates, we can do between 3-4 loads a day.
During loading, the driver moves the vehicle back and forth to ensure the correct weight is distributed over each axle.
Well, they're predominantly Leyland DAFs and Fodens, and we operate 6x4 tippers and 8x4 tippers. Mainly the reason is because the rigids, the instability of articulated vehicles, if they're not in line, we've had them go over, which is no good to anybody.
Mileage, every day probably between 2 and 350, 400 k's.
The Foden S108R has got the Cummins M305E 6-cylinder 11-litre turbocharged diesel engine. It's got 350 brake horsepower, a gross vehicle weight of 32 tonnes and an 8x4 axle configuration. It's got rubber suspension and it's got the Eaton 12-speed twin splitter gearbox.
We've just got that extra gear for climbing up hills. They are good, it's probably the best vehicle I've ever had. It's got plenty of pulling power, plenty of room in the cab, plenty spacious and it's comfortable. What we need riding around this place is comfort.
Well, we're very keen on ensuring all our vehicles are maintained correctly and comply with our operator's licence. So we therefore ensure that all drivers do pre-inspections for each morning and they're maintained for safety inspections, A, B and C services.
Now before this vehicle can go out on the road, we've got to do 3 things. Cover it. To comply with the Environmental Protection Act, each vehicle must be sheeted to ensure the load is secure during transportation. Failure to adhere to this can lead to fines of up to £20,000 per truck.
We used to have to climb up on top and pull a sheet across. Well, people were falling off and hurting themselves, and now what we do, we have what we call a rollover sheet, which we pull over and strap down.
Wash the wheels and chassis and weigh it. Now that's one way of transporting your aggregate, but join me later in the show when we're looking at another method.
The largest 3.5 tonne or 3,500 kilo van that you can get. What is it? Let's have a look. The Iveco Daily 3510. Right, this Iveco Daily 3510. It's the highest cube van you can get at 3,500 kilos, 4.2 metres long. Now, it's a high volume van, as you can see. High roof. Now, the thing you've got to check for on these high roofs, make sure there is no damage, there's no water ingress whatsoever. Damage on these, if somebody's been under something low, always make sure you know the height of the vehicle, because if it's damaged, you'll get water into the back. It can cause a lot of problems. Check on that. The other thing on these that you will suffer with is corrosion. Now, corrosion you will get on a lot of these. You're going to get corrosion around these back door edges. Very bad corrosion along here. Get them checked. Now, let's go and have a look down the side of the vehicle. Let's go and see what we got down there. What we need to check for on these is rust and corrosion. Now, the thing to look for around here is rust and corrosion around these wheel arches, also on the inside and down these edges. Check for that. Also, rust and corrosion around these marker lights. Now, because the marker lights are so proud of the body, you will get damage to the marker lights and the body, and corrosion. Check it. Now, the other thing to look for on a van of this size, 200,000 kilometres. Now, the van should look like this, straight, flat panels. Normally, they'll look like a battlefield. Check them, because if they're damaged, they will leak water, especially down seams like this and roof seams. Now, the roof, being a fiberglass or glassonite roof, the way they're fitted on, if they're knocked or damaged, they will leak along these edges. Check them. Get it properly checked over. Now, let's go and have a look inside, see what we've got. A large, spacious cab. Now, this is just what you want if you're doing the long hauls. Dual passenger seat, plenty of room. And the things they do think about in here, you've got a lockable glove box here, right by where the driver is, so you can get to all your documentation, everything nicely stored away. Couldn't wish for better, could you? Now, the thing you might need also, do you tow a trailer? If you are towing a trailer and you're doing it for hire and reward, towing other people's goods, you might need one of these. Now, that's a tachograph. Now, you need to check with a dealer or with your national traffic area to find out, do you need a tachograph fitted if you tow a trailer? Check, because it can be an expensive fine if you get caught without one. Now, let's go and have a look and see what powers this beast under the bonnet. Let's go and have a look. Okay, under the bonnet, 2.5 litre turbo diesel. Plenty of grunt for a vehicle of this size. This will pull everything along. Thing to check for, head gaskets. Just make sure that the vehicle's got a service history with it, because they are prone to head gaskets. You can check that there's no water in the oil. Get a good check of the engine. Now, for £4,500, that's not a bad buy. Just make sure it's got a service history with it though. It's a good van. You've bought your high capacity van. Now remember, that will carry 1,240 kilos. Make sure you don't overload the axles. By law, there is a weight on each axle. Make sure you know it. Make sure also you know your towing weights. You might have only paid £4,500 for that van, which is a good buy. But just be careful. If you break the law towing or overweight, you can find yourself in fines with that amount of money. So think about it, talk to your dealer, make sure you know the law before you set out on the road.
Well, welcome back to the final part of trucks. Earlier in the show, I mentioned a different method of transporting aggregates. Well, this is it. Although you may think that the majority of aggregate is transported by road, the quarry has its very own railway freight terminal that shares 50% of the distribution.
quarry we operate 10 dumpers and 5 loading shovels, but we also then own 89 rail wagons taking materials by rail to 6 depots.
The trains are loaded either by a conveyor belt system or, as here, by a shovel.
This vehicle is a Cat 980G. It's 2 years old. I load the road wagons and railway trucks as well. The machines now, the loading shovels are very driver friendly now. Everything's adjustable inside.
Caterpillar wheel loader has got the 3406C diesel engine, a power of 321 brake horsepower and a maximum gross weight of 30 tonnes. The bucket size is anywhere between 3.8 and 5.7 cubic metres, and it's got a 4-speed electronic auto with paddle shift control gearbox. So next time you get stuck in the great car park of life, you now know where it all comes from.
Coming up next week,